Hello, my name is Sheridan Ruth, and I am here to welcome you home. This is the Exposed Podcast. Where we reveal the body-based ways to ease anxiety, heal trauma, and create an empowered connection with love and money using nervous system regulation and a healthy dose of self-compassion. Hello, welcome. My name is Sheridan. I'm an integrative somatic trauma therapist, and today we are talking about practicing nervous system awareness in relationships. This episode is for people. It's for you if you want to love yourself better. It's for you if you want to love the other people in your life better. It's for you if you want to have less tension. It's for you if you want to be able to work through the inevitable stresses of life, or perhaps trauma that you have been through or that you're currently experiencing, with a little bit more resilience, a little bit more ease, and a little bit more love for a lot. I want to start this episode off by actually telling you a story about a mentor of mine. Some of you who are already in this world will know what I'm talking about. Somebody, you guys won't know what I'm talking about. That's fine. If you don't know who it is, that's totally fine. It doesn't matter. But I was in a training recently with Richard Schwartz, who is the founder of Internal Family Systems. It's a therapeutic technique that I like to work with. It's parts work, essentially. And so we're in this training, and there were quite a few people on the Zoom call. It was an online training. And he was taking questions. And there was a person who said something and asked him a question that I can't remember what the question was, but I remember witnessing it. And she asked this question, and my body had this like, oh my God, that's a really awkward question to ask. That was quite aggressive. It was an aggressive question. And I could feel my nervous system go, like, get this activation, right? Almost like holding my breath, like, what's this person gonna say? You guys, you've had this experience before, right? And so I watched this occur, and I watched his response. His response was to actually say something along the lines of, this is not verbatim, of, I'm feeling really activated right now, and I want to respond to your question well, and I'm feeling really activated right now. A part of me saying XYZ, and a part of me saying XYZ, etc. And I thought this was a really good example of practicing nervous system awareness in relationship. What continued happening was he kind of said this, his response activated the other person. They came on, they had a conversation on the call. You could tell that they were both tense. It was a bit awkward. And by the end of it, they created reconciliation. And they actually had to take a break, and there was a reconciliation that I believe was made off screen. And it was uncomfortable. But we don't actually practice this nervous system regulation, nervous system awareness, trauma healing, self-love. We don't do all of this to avoid conflict. We do it to be able to hold conflict and disagreements and other people's perspectives with love and awareness. We don't want it to escalate. We want it to stay in this nice calm realm. Sometimes that includes taking breaks. But I thought this was a good example of somebody using this awareness in relationship to somebody else. And I thought it would be supportive to actually break down what nervous system awareness is in relationship, how to do it, and give you some practices. As I move through this podcast and as I move through explaining to you all of these different things, I'm probably going to reference my nervous system PDF, which you will find in the show notes. I'll make sure it's linked. It's my nervous system PDF. It's totally free. Just download it with your email in, and it's going to help you understand your different nervous system states and what they look like. This is different to random information that you will find online. It is much more specific and helps you understand, number one, what's happening in your body that will tell you that you're in a different nervous system state, an activated or a more relaxed one. And number two, it's going to give you practices, tools, and practices and tools that you can use without much privacy, without much time, and without many resources. You don't need to have anything special. So go ahead and download that while I'm speaking. But let's get into it. I actually asked a few people on Facebook and Instagram if you had any questions. And the first question was, how do I start? So let's start there. So how do you start? How do you start nervous system awareness and regulation in relationships? The place you start is with yourself. The place you start is understanding your nervous system and understanding what triggers you and what regulates you. Your nervous system runs throughout your whole entire body. It's automatically responding to all of the stimuli outside of you and inside of you, actually. And it doesn't respond in a way that your logical mind does. It goes into its file cabinet system of understanding the world since the beginning of time. And more specifically, the way your nervous system responds is based on like generations back, up to 7 generations back. It's responding to information from up to 7 generations back. And it's kind of classifying it. It classifies it, gives you sensations, gives you emotions, and gives you thoughts, which then you reclassify, you classify it again, and you kind of decide, is this helpful? Is this not helpful? Should I feel good about this? You do a million things. You ask, am I a good person for having this thought? Am I a good person for having this emotion? Does this mean that there's something wrong? We do all these things. But essentially, your nervous system is collecting all of this information, kind of classifying it, and then presenting it to you through your thoughts, emotions, and sensations. Everyone's nervous system is really different. For you, it might not be very bothersome to have really loud noise and a messy house. Your nervous system, your mind, your body might be like, whatever, not a big deal. For your partner, it might be extremely difficult to have noise and a dirty house. It might put their nervous system in a state of stress. But we start with you. So using the PDF, you're going to start looking at the different nervous system states. There are essentially 1, 2, 3. I like to think of them as 4. It's helpful for me to think of them as 4. Different theories have different opinions on this specific number. I'm not super worried about what the specific number is. Let's think of them as 4. You basically have your stress response, which can be classified either as a fight response, a flight response, or a freeze or a fawn response. And so you're going to use your awareness, you're going to use the PDF, and you're going to begin to notice, when do I respond in a way that I want to fight? And we'll talk about in a moment about how to identify that. When do I respond in a way that I want to flight, so I want to get out? When do I respond in a way where I kind of freeze or fawn? And what helps me feel regulated? When do I respond to things in a way that brings me back down into a space of calmness and curiosity and compassion? I like to think of the states of, there are many ways we can get into the understand what a regulated nervous system is, but when it specifically relates to relationships, I like to think a regulated nervous system in relationship is compassionate, it's congruent, it's clear, and it's playful, right? So it's compassionate, congruent, clear, and playful, or spontaneous, or whatever your version of playful is. So we want to begin understanding yours. We also want to begin by understanding theirs. We also want to begin by understanding how you guys work together and affect each other. I find one of the easiest ways to understand the nervous system of your own and that of your partner in relationships, is by looking at your communication. It's just one of the most tangible, clear ways that you can interact with yourself and another and use it as information to tell me where are they in the nervous system space. When I'm working with you one-on-one, I would ask you more questions about what's inside of your body, but I can't actually experience the body of my partner. So the way that I understand their nervous system, yeah, like I know things about them, so I can look at the way that they behave, their posture, and all of these things. But the way that I can understand it in the most, not superficial, but just obvious way is through the communication. Our communication will change depending on our nervous system state, because our body is telling us that we need to communicate in a different way. What I'm about to say, as always, it is not a comprehensive list. It is a guide for you to understand these things and then apply them to your life. But in general, you might notice that if you are in a fight response, so your body is in a stress response and it thinks it needs to fight to protect itself, that you are highly judgmental and critical, either of yourself or of others, right? So there's this fight energy of highly judgmental and critical of yourself and others. This also moves towards blaming or lashing out and getting angrier than usual at something. So I like to think of kind of just like getting angry, right? If someone's really angry, it's usually a sign that they're in more of a fight response. If they have this very visible anger, you can be angry and not be in a fight response. That's very true. But generally, if you're observing anger in somebody, unless it's passive aggressive, they're probably more likely to be in a fight response. I would definitely say, though, that they're in a stress response. If they're visibly angry to you, they're in a stress response, meaning that their nervous system thinks they're not safe. And when your nervous system thinks that you are not safe, you are not interested in reconciliation. You're not interested in hearing the other person out, nothing. We'll talk about that in a sec. But you can identify. So notice, when do I go into a fight response? And when do I go into, oh, wait, we haven't got to them. Yeah. I'd probably also put here defensiveness. I think it depends a little bit on the person, but I would probably put defensiveness in the fight response. The flight response tends to be, they're just kind of like a little bit checked out or lost. They don't really want to be there. There might be like jittering. You might find yourself kind of jittering, like I don't want to be there. Lack of eye contact, maybe trying to avoid the topic, kind of like, oh, let's talk about this later. Let's talk about this home. You're avoiding connection with an individual by focusing on something else. And there's a restlessness about this. There's this energy that's like, it's restless. It's a little bit anxious. It's like, I don't really want to be here. I want to be focused on something else. Okay, that's another stress response. Your freeze response might show up in communication as stonewalling, putting up a wall in between yourself or in between the other person and you. So this might be something that's really conscious or subconscious. Freeze responses can actually be kind of more difficult to identify because sometimes it's, I feel really frozen and I don't want to do, so I'm just going to get really busy with work and avoid this conversation. I feel really frozen about this issue. I feel paralyzed with this issue. I don't know what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to not have sex with this person for a while. It might be like just stonewalling you, putting you down, not just kind of refusing to talk about something, refusing this, like, no. It might be that you are checked out in the middle of the conversation. So you're kind of having this conversation and then you just don't really feel present. You just kind of like, there's this almost like this numbness or this cloud or this fog that overcomes you, this heaviness sometimes, or sometimes you can just feel really light and like you're almost floating above yourself. This disassociation sometimes comes in. What can also happen when a way to see that somebody is in a freeze response or the way that you are in a freeze response could also be that you're in analysis paralysis. So you're in this loop of overanalyzing or overthinking about something. Your partner might do this to you if they just want to like speak about it a lot, or you might do this to your partner if you just want to speak about something a lot. Just kind of get to the end and figure this thing out. That can be a sign that we're now in a freeze response. I did group these together in that they are in a similar dorsal vagal nervous system response, but I will take a moment to differentiate the difference in communication with freeze and fawn. This freeze is like a literal freeze. Your body is like frozen, not prioritizing resources and energy for the thing that it thinks is dangerous, such as your partner. Fawn, it's similar, but it's more of this appease in relationships. And this tends to be very common in people who experience a fawn response most likely have experienced that or adopted that way of behaving since they were a child, because it can be really helpful when it's not healthy, but it can be very helpful when you're in child. And this appease or this fawn response is typically demonstrated when you are people pleasing or saying yes when you actually mean no, or feeling like you can't say what you really think and feel. This might be a sign that either you or the person that is demonstrating these behaviors is in a fawn response. So if you notice you or anyone else going through these communication qualities, you could now understand that their nervous system has put them into a stress response, meaning their body is literally telling them that they are in danger. And probably you're the dangerous one. I know that you're not the dangerous one. I know that you love this person a lot. But if either of you is in this state, it means that their body's priority is just self-preservation. And you can try and fix it. You can try and talk about it. You can try and find the right technique, and you can try to do all of these things. But before we can find any resolution, we need to get you both out of this stress response. Because when you are in a stress response, you literally just don't care about collaboration. You don't care about teamwork. You don't care about understanding. You don't care about compassion. You don't really care because your body thinks you're unsafe, and your body thinks you're running from a lion. And when you're running from a lion, you're not going to stop and validate everyone's feelings because your body's like, we're running from a lion. So I want you to have a little bit of compassion with yourself when you notice yourself in these places. Like, you haven't done anything wrong. It's okay. Let's just get you back to a regulated space. And also have compassion with your partner and say, yeah, their body's telling them that they're unsafe. Let's get them back to a safe place. That's the essence of nervous system awareness in relationships. So that's where we begin, by understanding, by bringing awareness to what brings you into these states, what brings your partner into these states, and then also understanding how you work together. So how you influence each other to either enter or exit these states. There's one thing that I said about congruence. So I named compassion, congruence, clarity, and playfulness as hallmarks of regulated nervous system communication and awareness in relationships. And congruence is a really important one here. I go really deep into this and what to do and how to really be congruent in relationships without hurting yourself or others inside of my courses. So it is quite in depth, and I can't go into it fully here, but I will say that it's important to be congruent when you are in relationship with another person, meaning that your nervous system state, your emotional state, and the things that you're saying and doing should all be in alignment. They should all match up and make sense. Because if they do not, you are out of congruence. Things don't make sense. Things don't add up. When things don't add up, it equals a lack of safety. Have you guys ever been have you guys like gone to a dinner party, right? And your childhood may have been like this. It may just been a dinner party that you were at, but you go to a dinner party and you can tell that there are two people who are fighting. You can just tell there is something that is just off. It's just off, and you don't really have a lot of information to tell you, but like it just doesn't feel right. It's just kind of off. When your nervous system perceives that something is just off, it says, I don't have all the information here. Something isn't right. I'm unsafe. And it is more likely to go into that stress response. It's like, I don't have all the information. I'm not safe. It's difficult. It's traumatic for the nervous system. That's why sometimes, you might use these communication tools and techniques from like, I don't know, nonviolent communication. Maybe you've read that, or you might use these tools and techniques from therapists, and you try to use it. And you're like, yeah, this is what's supposed to work if I do relationships like this, and it doesn't work. It actually makes things worse, right? Sometimes it happens, and it's because there's a lack of congruence between what your body and your emotions are telling you and what you're doing. And your partner's nervous system is picking up on that. And it's saying, they're lying to me. There's something that's not right here. I don't have all the information. I can't receive the love that they're trying to give me. Furthermore, when you're out of congruence in yourself, your nervous system does the exact same thing and says, she's doing this thing, but it's like not totally coming from her heart. Is this safe? Or is this not safe? Is it really safe to be me? If I'm doing something that's out of alignment with what I'm really feeling, is this really safe? Probably not. That's the conversation that your body is having with your brain. And so you actually are more likely to go back into a stress response and feel hopeless and feel frustrated, feel anxious, and go back into your rumination and go back into your passive aggressiveness. You know the deal. You do this, I do this, we do this, this happens. So that's where you start. Download the PDF, understand your triggers and what regulates you, understand theirs, and understand how you affect each other. We're basically creating a map and looking at where your current blind spots are so that we can then address that and, for lack of a better word, fix it. Then what we're going to do is actually, I'm going to answer the question somebody asked for simple regulatory practices that I can easily weave into my life that will be proactively beneficial to my relationship. This is a really good one. And it really comes back to knowing what your regulated zone is and knowing when you get out of that. So ways that you can identify regulated, once again, PDF has much more information on this, but essentially you feel kind of at home. You feel grounded, you have perspective on things in life, you feel patient, you feel curious about things, you feel compassionate, you feel a little playful, you're happy to be around people, you're happy to go and do things in life. You feel at ease, even when things are hard. Doesn't mean that you don't feel stressed, or it doesn't mean that you don't feel big emotions. It means that you're able to feel the things and say things like, you know what, I'm feeling sad and I'm okay. You know what, I'm feeling frustrated and I'm a bit worried about what this means. And I know that we're going to get through it. Or I don't know that we're going to get through it, but I know I'm going to be okay. It's this feeling of confidence and resilience and this sense of like, yeah, it's okay, it's safe. And the best thing that you can do for your relationship is increase the amount of time that you are in this regulated zone. I call it the green zone. Getting back to that place where you get out of it is going to depend on a lot of things. So number one is knowing your green zone, and really, like, the best thing, I'll say it again, the best thing you can do for yourself and your relationship is increase the amount of time that you are in that green zone, particularly when you're interacting with each other. Some examples of practices that you can use to get back to your green zone might be, if you are in a flight, so let's just say that you are having a conversation with your partner, and something they do or say just gives you this energy of like, I have to get out. Like, I don't want to be here. You're getting distracted. You don't want to focus on it. Like, you're just like, you know what? Like, no, it's just, I'm anxious. I'm fearful. Like, what are they going to say? Like, I want to get out, right? Your body has gone to this stress response where it's put all this energy in your limbs, and it thinks that you need to run away from something. A lot of people that I know who have an avoidant attachment style, which means that they are less comfortable with being close to people, have experienced this energy of, I have to run away from something. And in that moment, they actually ignored it, and it kind of got stuck in the system and became, this is a very simplified understanding of this, but it became over pronounced in the system, was not released through the system, and now they have more of an avoidant attachment. What can sometimes be helpful if you do have that flight response of like, I just want to get out of this. This is a no, I know. Instead of going into the conversation more or going into the reasoning and the thoughts in your mind, get up and get out and expel that. Your body wants to do this action of getting up and out. It wants to get up and out. It's like, I gotta run away from something. So what I want you to do is look for actions that you can use in your body that will complete that action cycle. So this literally means getting up and going for a walk around the block. And this might mean saying to your partner, you know what? I need to pause this for 10 minutes. I will be back. It's important that you actually do come back to your partner, because nervous system awareness in relationships is creating emotional safety in relationships, and creating emotional safety is doing what you say you will do. Dear listener, before we wrap the end of this episode up, I want you to know that I see you. I know that you're ready to bounce back from difficulties in your life quickly and with more ease by having the tools to regulate your nervous system and find inner peace instead of inner conflict. I know you're ready to embrace life's challenges and stresses and feel confident to take on whatever comes your way, including anxiety or anger, to move through them without manipulating them, without having to spend eternity in uncertainty, sticky emotions, and physical discomfort. You are ready to celebrate the growth of yourself, your relationship, your finances, without experiencing shame or guilt when you're doing it quicker than those around you. Which is why I'm extending an invitation to you to book an expansion call, where we will dive even deeper on exactly what you need in your personal situation to make this a reality, to go from overwhelmed managing big emotions and perhaps going into anxiety or depression to overflowing abundance, ease, and certainty. You'll get free support around your unique situation, and we will also discuss whether or not working through my ease framework in a one-on-one capacity is the best fit for you right now on your journey of becoming more resilient and regulated. Use the link in the show notes to lock in your call ASAP. So if you can't come back in 10 minutes, don't say that you will, but say, I just need to go for a walk, and then I'm going to calm myself down, and then I'm going to come back to this conversation. I want you to come back. Doesn't mean that you have to have the big conversation in that moment, but you do need to check in with your partner, because we need to be mindful of their nervous system as well. So if we're in this flight energy, you notice that you're getting into that flight behavior, get up, expel the energy. Sometimes it's dancing, sometimes it's like punching something. It's just like getting up and getting out. If we go into the fight energy, so remember, that's like you feel like you need to kind of defend yourself. You want to fight. Maybe you're more angry or defensive. Once again, instead of going into the words and the thoughts and the plans and the ultimatums and the boundaries, go express the fight urge that your body has. The fight urge means that it's looking to expel emotions and expel energy in a way that is similar to that of a fight. So, for example, this might be you go punch some pillows. It might be that you go to the gym. And I think lifting heavy objects is a really helpful one in this place because it gives the muscles the contraction and release that they're really looking for. And it can be done by just cleaning your house and cleaning behind the sofa. Like that could be your thing that you do because you're in that fight zone. You could just anger clean. If you do not feel supported by the idea of going into the fight energy, and I need to preface and say, I don't mean like you go in and you become the energy, because that can be traumatized into the body, and I can never recommend that you go in and become the energy. You're letting your body expel the energy through your actions, but you are still remaining strong and resourced. And I'm going to have to do another episode about resourcing later on. So look out for that one. So you're remaining strong and resourced as you do this. If expressing the fight energy doesn't feel supportive, you can do other things, such as have a cold shower, use some lavender, essential oil, use any type of essential oil that's really calming, do some long exhales, something that is going to be calming to the parasympathetic nervous system, so bring you into that parasympathetic response. Could be just some stretching. If you notice that as you do these more calming practices, your mind just doesn't really want to shut up, I would just get up and shake a little bit and then return to the calming practice. There's a whole list of recommendations inside of the PDF. The other thing that you can do, if you're going into the freeze or the fawn response, what's happening is your body's actually taking resources. Your body's kind of pretending to be dead, right? It thinks that the best way that it can manage the threat is by pretending to be dead. And sometimes when we're in this freeze or fawn response and we're numb and we just like don't really feel good, a lot of conventional advice over the past couple of decades has actually told you to like take deep breaths and do meditation, and it's really shitty. It doesn't help. When you're in this freeze or this fawn place, you actually want to activate energy. So we need to do something, even though you don't want to. I know that you don't want to, but you need to do something that puts energy in your limbs, even though you don't want to. You just want to go to sleep. Any sleep that you do enter into is actually not going to be very nourishing because your body is dysregulated. So it's in this stress response while it's sleeping. What we want to do is get regulated, get back to the green zone, and then you can have a nap. So you probably don't want to do this. You probably just want to watch Netflix, but I want you to just get up. I want you to go buy something from a shop. If you can, I find it really helpful to just interact with somebody. When we interact with human beings, it gives us this sense of it's a social response, and it brings us back to like, oh my God, if it's safe enough to interact with somebody and to smile at somebody and have them smile at me, it's okay. Everything must be safe. That's what's happening in your body. Go buy something from a shop, get up, stretch, sit in the sun, or practice an activating breath practice. I have a couple of ones on my Instagram. But anything where you're actually focusing on increasing the inhale, that will be really helpful. If you have any of my master classes, you probably find we do this a lot inside of my master classes as well. I give you some there, especially in the what to do when triggered one. Go back to that. So those are the regulatory practices that you could do. And you can see that you don't actually need a lot of stuff to do that, right? But just bringing yourself back down to your green zone as often as you can and taking breaks. Oh, this next question, I got a lot of people ask me, and it's how to get your partner interested in it. This is an interesting one. Let me take a sip of my tea before I answer. So I'm going to actually answer with some advice, but I'm just going to also answer, do like a little bit of a, yeah, but it doesn't matter. They don't need to be interested in it. Sometimes we worry about getting our partners interested because it is a way that we get to avoid doing the work. Or we blame our relationship's lack of success on them. And you're in a dysregulated state when you're doing this. It's not helpful, and it's a coping mechanism that you're using because you get to avoid doing your own work. It's a pain avoidance mechanism. So my answer is don't get them interested. Focus on yourself, model to them, and if it is supportive to them, they will get interested in it. We have to trust that our partners are grown-ass human beings who know what is best for them, and they will make empowering decisions. Because sometimes their nervous system regulation path is not through learning about it, through this. Sometimes they just do it because humans do it. We've been doing it for years without podcasts, without the internet, without this information. Yes, we do it better now in some ways. Who am I to say, actually? I don't know. I wasn't all over history. But yeah, I think a lot of us who are in this space, we need to be open to the idea of our partner's path of self-development being completely different to ours and having nothing to do with personal development. They might find this in different ways that we don't understand. It might be by going to the gym. Maybe they're sitting and doing deep breaths on the toilet when they take a break from your conversation, or we just don't know. So my answer is don't try to get them interested. But if you do want to get them interested and you're 100% sure that it's not coming from a place of you getting to avoid your own work by just focusing on getting them to do something, here are my tips. I think it's what's been like the most helpful for me and for the clients that I've shared this with is actually sharing them the PDF and sharing with them the PDF and teaching them about the yellow, red, blue, and green zones. And when you're having conversations and you notice yourself kind of moving to a yellow, red, or a blue zone, just saying, wait a second, I'm yellow. And just naming it, just saying, I'm getting up, I'm getting activated in this conversation. And encourage, and by you doing that, you're modeling to them that they can also do it. You might suggest it. You might also just let them see if they want to. You might just ask, bring your curiosity. Hey, do you want to practice this thing where we only have conversations in the green zone? I think it could be really helpful. Maybe it would make our relationship easier. What do you reckon? Kind of curious. You got to be open to them saying no and that being okay. Got to be a safe person to say no to. So I'd probably say learn your own zones and communicate with them when you notice that you're in those zones. The best way that you can get anyone interested in anything is to be a role model to them. And so once you're using that, I'm kind of, okay, we're practicing this awareness, we're noticing when we're triggered, we're noticing when we're activated. I would focus on getting back to green and then moving through a couple of steps that I'm going to give you. I'm taking these steps from my what to do when triggered framework. I went over this in episode 12 of the podcast. So this is inspired from that. If you want more information about this, go to that episode. So the first thing is we notice that we're dysregulated and we say, I need to get back to green before I can continue this. The first thing we do is we get in the body. And you use any of your regulating techniques to get back in the body. If it is hard for you to do that, using all of the other techniques that I've shared with you and the ones in the PDF, a couple of others that I wrote down earlier that I haven't mentioned, are tapping your body, providing feedback to the body by tapping it. You can use a flat palm or you can use 2 fingers, just tapping it all over. Swaying and rocking the body. This can actually be really nice to do with your partner if you guys are having a difficult conversation, just kind of touching each other, or even just swaying next to each other or going underneath a blanket. A blanket can be really nice, very nourishing, swaying and rocking the body. This is a regulatory technique. I'm sitting here and I'm swaying as I speak, and I can actually feel that really calming me down. connecting with breath together. So you can just say, let's get back to green. Let's take 3 deep breaths. Or squeezing your muscles and then releasing them. Squeezing everything and releasing it. Squeezing everything and then releasing. Some of these techniques will help you get back. I'm giving you a lot of information at the moment. Don't think that you need to have all of it. Just pick one that sounds interesting, write it down, use that. So once we get back into the body and we get some fairly regulated, not to say that you feel amazing, but you just kind of feel more grounded, we want to work through naming the emotion. And so I would probably do this. If I was looking to get my partner interested, I would do this process with my partner. Let's get back to green. Oh, let's name our emotions. And I want you to get really clear about what your emotion is. An emotion is not a feeling. I feel like you XYZ. No, that's not an emotion. An emotion is an emotion, such as anger, sadness, loneliness, frustration, indifference, indignant. Find your emotion. You can Google emotion wheel. You'll find that. If you're in most of my masterclasses have an emotion wheel or an emotion scale. If you find them, all of my programs do. Name the emotion as clearly as you can. If you're struggling to name the emotion using the resources that you have, look at the sensations and thoughts and just kind of ask, what emotion could be related to these thoughts? And you're just sharing that. You're not making it wrong. You're not judging whether or not it's adequate. You're not like nothing. You're just like, yeah, I'm experiencing a lot of sadness. That's it. Then I want you to name a resource or something pleasurable, something that is supportive to you. And so this is like, okay, I'm in my body. I'm experiencing a lot of sadness. And this chair is very supportive to me. And I feel good sitting next to my partner right now. Or I would feel really good and resourced if we were to sit in different rooms at the moment. Or the sun on my face is helpful, or this tea in my hand, that you're finding something that is a resource, which is really just a place that is a thing that gives you comfort and confidence. Sometimes people use resources saying, we're a strong couple, we're going to get through this. That would be an example of a resource. Then I want you to get really curious. Curiosity is a pillar of a regulated nervous system. And the more curious that you can be inside of all your relationships, including with your own thoughts and your own sensations, the better. So that includes being like, I wonder why I feel so sad about this. What am I assuming when she's speaking to me? Or hey, I wonder if maybe things aren't gonna play out the way that my mind's telling me to play out. Or even like, hey babe, I noticed that you kind of made a bit of a face when I said this thing. I'm kind of curious, what was going through your mind when that happened? We're not making you wrong. We're not making them wrong. We're not talking about shoulds. We're just saying this is here and this is real. And we're doing it from a place of understanding that you and your partner have stress responses and that there are going to be times where your body thinks that each one of you is the enemy. And your job is to support your nervous system in getting out of that and reestablishing a sense of safety and trust together. This is the beginning of what might be, for some of you, a long road, but it's a very nourishing one. Very, very nourishing. So wherever you are on your road, I'd love to hear your questions, your thoughts, your successes, your wins. It's very supportive. I like hearing it. I'm being selfish when I ask for them. I'm also being selfless because I get to help you and orient you guys sometimes, but I really like it. So that would be really cool if you could do that. I'd like that. Definitely share this with a friend. Save it, download it, come back to it when you need a reminder. Make sure that you have the PDF. And thank you so much for listening. Bye. A big and special thanks to Upturned for composing this magical piece of music and to GS Studios for mixing it. To find upturns, other tracks, or ask for your own special custom piece of music, go say hello using their contact details in the show notes.